Do a quick brake pad and rotor change on a 2008 Toyota Sienna. This is my first time making a YouTube video, but I noticed that nobody has something like this out there yet. So for all of you novice to mid-level do-it-yourselfers, here's what we're going to do. So here's all my tools that I'll need. I've got a 14 millimeter, 17 millimeter socket. I've got a foot-pound torque wrench, a large screwdriver, my ratchet, steel cheater bar, 3-inch C-clamp, but you can use a larger one if you need to. My lug nut wrench, a rubber mallet, a box with my rotor in it, new brake pads, 3.5-inch or 3.5 ton jack, jack stand, power tool for removing the lug nuts. All right, let's begin. So one of the things when you're looking at the wheels, if you have a shimmy in your brakes and you're feeling and hearing weird screeches, a brake issue could be at hand. I know that is what's wrong with this one, but another good indicator is all this brake dust. Like, this is after 2 trips to the store, not too far away, getting the screeching and the shimming, as well as black brake dust. If the lighting were better, you could see how the rotors also have tons of grooves in them. You'll see that later in the video. And we'll go ahead and start. So I've got the van jacked up. It's actually resting on the jack stand, not the jack, because that's a safety thing. I've got the back wheels chalked, and the front wheel, the wheel that you're going to be working on, should be turned towards you. Make sure you do this, because as you see when we take off the lug nuts, it's going to be very hard to access the actual brake caliper and the shoe and get the bolts off without doing that. So I'm going to go ahead and take off the lug nuts and remove the wheel and show you what the brakes look like underneath. All right, so I've taken off the wheel, and what we can see here, this is the rotor, this is the caliper, this part here is the brake shoe, and I don't know if you can tell from the video or not, but you can tell this looks like a vinyl record. Run your finger across it, you can feel all the deep grooves there. Definitely not a good rotor. Now, you can go ahead and get this relathed at a local shop or buy a new rotor. I actually got a really good Black Friday deal, so I picked up a couple of front rotors for less than 60 bucks. And so we're just going to replace them. That way you know how to do it even if you don't. So we're going to go back here and start with the caliper and the shoe. The bolts we're taking a look at right here, these are 14 millimeter bolts, top and bottom. This is what's holding the caliper onto the suspension. Behind them, you'll see the 17-inch bolts, which holds the shoe that has the brake pads in them that go on either side of the rotor. And so we're going to go ahead and take the 14 millimeter bolts off first using your ratchet, and I suggest you use a cheater bar because these will be pretty tight. They're supposed to be torqued to about 25 foot-pounds. All right. Okay, so I've gone ahead and loosened the bolts with the cheater bar. And go ahead, and these are now able to unscrew with my fingers. I'm going to take that off. I'm going to take the top one off. Oh, not loose enough yet. Should do it. All right. Right now, what's keeping the caliper on is the pressure that's being exerted by the brake fluid in this line to the piston that's actually inside the caliper, and it's holding it on there. So to remove this, we're going to take our large screwdriver, and you probably don't want to use this if you're going to reuse the rotor, because it could cause some damage. But like I said, we have new rotors, so I'm just going to stick this in here, get a good hold on it, and I'm going to pull, which is going to cause the piston to go back into its housing, and then this whole caliper will come off. Okay, so I've got my screwdriver in there. I'm just going to gently pull. You can kind of see the springs, or at least the bolts, on the top part of the caliper starting to compress. We're just going to pull this. What this is doing on the inside is it's going ahead and it's compressing that piston, and should hear it lock and reset right there. All right, now this whole thing should be able to come off just like so. There's the piston inside the caliper. Just going to gently put this up top. We're going to get to that in just a second. So one of the things that we want to take a look at now is the rotor. And you can kind of see that the rotor here has these two pads next to it. And you can see this one's completely worn out. And this is probably what's causing damage to the rotor. This outer one, not so bad, but it's about half the size it should be. And again, once more, this is probably what's causing all of this corrosion and warp. And this isn't really warping, but all these grooves and gouges in the rotor. So I'll go ahead and show you how thick a new brake pad is. And you can kind of see the difference here. They're side by side now. One of them has about a third, or maybe less than a fourth of the pad left. And this one on the right side has absolutely nothing. So more than likely, yep, I can see in the shadow, you can't. The rotor is damaged on either side. Lots of grooves in it. So we're going to replace the whole thing. So the next thing we have to do when we're taking a look at the shoe that's left are these two bolts. One's right here. One's right here. These are 17 millimeter bolts, and they are what holds the entire brake apparatus onto the axle. These 17-inch bolts or 17 millimeter bolts. They are torqued down to 75 foot-pounds, so these are definitely going to need a cheater bar unless you're the Hulk, and you can rip those off. On these, definitely be careful with your ratchet. If you don't take it slow, there's enough pressure here that it could break your ratchet. So I'm going to go ahead and start that with the cheater bar. Alright, so I've used my cheater bar, and these are now wrench loose. Trying to get them to finger loose, so I can take that off, take the shoe off, and show you what's happening underneath and why the brakes got all jacked up. You can see a whole bunch of brake dust that just fell out of that. So, alright, that's almost good. Alright, so there's one. No damage, that's good. Put that down. Alright, ooh, we're not getting that one. Let's get the top one. Murmur, righty tighty, lefty loosey. It's finger loose now. Alright, I may have to catch the camera because I don't know if this is going to fall directly off or not. Catch the shoe. Nope, there we go. Alright, so that just comes off like so. Let me put that down. And I'm going to take the bolt the rest of the way out. Alright, and again, no damage. Alright, so when we're looking at the shoe, nice little contraption here. And a couple of components that need to be aware about. Here are the brake pads. Here are the metal slides, top and bottom. Should be able to pop these right out. So, and we're going to go ahead and take a look at these. Alright, so there's the outer, there's the inner. You can see absolutely no pad left on the inner side. What you can also see is the damage if you don't replace your brake pads regularly that you can do to your rotors and then have to do this all by yourself again or have somebody, $400 later do this for you. But anyway, you can see the pitting here. Obviously a rock got in between there, and that's probably what caused the gouging on the rotor. The outside looks pretty clean. All your pads are going to have some sort of venting channel, that's for the heat.
as these expand and shrink according to how hot they get when they break. But yeah, we're not going to use these anymore. These are done. All right, now when we look at the shoe, so the next thing we're going to do is look at the shoe. And we want to look at these slides, top and bottom. This is what holds the brake pads on the rotor. All right, and we're going to talk about this a little bit later. But what we should be looking for is this bolt. You can see how it goes in and out. It should be doing that. If it doesn't, this is just a rubber boot you can remove, take the bolt out, and then clean it up, and some wheel bearing grease, a little bit of wheel bearing grease back on the bolt, shove it back inside, and you should be good to go. But that one looks fine. It's moving back and forth. This one probably is going to take some... Yeah, I'll have to take that out. Huh? Oh, no. And look at that. That should be good to go. Alright, I'll probably take apart that boot and just see if there's anything going on. But what we should also do is clean with a wire brush these tracks, these slides. That should look like polished metal there and there when you're done with it. And get done with that, and then we'll go to the next step. Alright, the next step is removing the rotor. Now this should come off just by pulling on it. If it doesn't, grab your rubber mallet, kind of tap it from the back. At this point, aside from friction, there's nothing keeping this rotor on the rest of the axle, and then the caliper sitting on top of it. Speaking of which, you're going to want to find a place for this while you work on taking the rotor off. So I went ahead and got a box. You need to be careful you do not stretch or break any of the lines of brake fluid leading up to the caliper. So find yourself a box or something you can put this caliper up on, or if you've got really good balancing skills, you try to put it on the rest of the axle. I don't. I'm going to leave it right here. That's awkward. Alright, now it's safe and sound. Nothing's going to rip or break or tear, and I can get to the rotor. And it's a little wiggly, so I can go over here, grab my mallet real quick. Just little taps help it release the friction lock. And you can see it moving. Now it should be able to come right off. Yep, and there it goes. So, oops. Let's put this in the light, and you can again see how this plays a lot like a record now, all those grooves. That's bad news. Now, like I said before, you can go ahead and get that lathed, or you can get new rotors. But you'll see that this is both on the front side and way on the back side. You'll notice some pitting there too. Either way, this is a sign to you that, yeah, this rotor is done in the shape that it's in. Alright, so getting back here, take a look at the lug nuts. Don't see any damage. No, it's a little rusty, but that's what happens to iron. Alright, so that's what it should look like. Now, we're going to go ahead and get the other rotor in just a sec. So, this is the new rotor. If you take a look at it, you'll notice that it has this plastic covering on it. We're going to keep it on there. I recommend that you either get some gloves on at this point, clean ones, or you do what I'm about to do, or both, to keep the rotor from getting any grime or oils from your hands onto it, because if you do, it will cause problems later on where that part of the rotor will get some damage quicker than the rest of it. So as you can see, I've opened the bag, taken the rotor out. I'm just going to shimmy the bag down about halfway, and then go ahead and mount the rotor without ever touching the rotor underneath. I don't think I'm going to be able to show you that because I've only got two hands for the camera, so be back in a minute. Alright, so here I got the rotor halfway mounted. Notice I'm holding it only by the plastic bag. This ain't going to stay due to friction because it's brand new, so I'm going to go ahead and take a lug nut and semi-tighten it on there just so that the rotor stays in place while we're remounting everything else. Alright, so there's the lug nut that's holding the rotor onto the axle. We're going to go ahead and take a look at the brake shoe. And I've gone ahead, clean it up a little bit. Do you remember how that was grimy and yucky? Well, now those slides are pretty darn clear. Debris and gunk. Same thing on the top side. Clear. All right. I'm going to take a little bit of the wheel bearing grease, and we're just going to use this very sparingly. We're going to put a little bit on each of the slides. This is going to help the brake pads slide back and forth while they get pushed by the piston. Make sure you only get it, and I'll show you this in a second, on the bottom parts of the slides. We don't need to foul up anything else. Alright, so you can see it's the pink stuff. Just sparingly, on the bottom part of the slide, I'm going to do the same thing. Top part of the slide. Alright. Again, very gently lubricate, and not too much. The purpose for this is just to help the brake pads slide like they're supposed to. Alright, so now that we've gotten that lubed, I'm going to go ahead and put the new brake pads in. Alright, and here they are. Alright, now these can only really go in one way if you're going to get them to work right. So go ahead, you'll notice that they're contoured. So I actually have these on the wrong side here. The contour is going to follow the contour of the shoe. Alright, so we're going to go ahead and put those in. I need both hands for that, so see you in a bit. Alright, and just put the brake pads back into the shoe. You see they all line up nicely and within line of the contours of the shoe itself. Now we're going to go ahead and mount this to the axle. I give myself enough space. Hold on just a sec. Alright, I'm going to try to do this one-handed. Don't know if it'll work. If not, you won't see it. So I'm putting the shoe back up in line with the rotor. Alright, just like that. Now I'm going to take the 17-inch bolts and I'm going to put those in to the back, and I'm going to torque that down to 75 foot-pounds. Alright, so I've hand tightened the 17-inch bolts on the back side here. And now I'm going to take my torque wrench. Oops. I'm going to tighten these up. 75 torque pounds. There we go. Alright, there we go. And now we're going to reassemble the caliper, which is up on top. You remember how we use the screwdriver to kind of compress the piston in the beginning of the video? Well, now that ain't going to work. So the piston has probably readjusted itself. You can see right there, it came out of its housing. You can't push that in. There's a lot of hydraulic fluid between you and it. So you remember at the beginning of the video how I said you're going to need a C-clamp? This is where that comes in. I'm going to go over here, grab our C-clamp. Again, this is a 3-inch one. If you go bigger, that's fine. You can't go smaller than a 3-inch because you won't have the proper amount of force to close the piston. So I'm just going to attach it like so, and then screw the screw down until the piston goes back into its housing here. That should give me enough time to then mount the caliper over the new rotor and the brake pads. You'll notice that this is now a lot wider than it used to be with the other brake pads because they're pretty much shot and worn out. They were kind of in. Alright, be back in. Alright, so what you can see here is me using the C-clamp to compress the piston. Be very careful that you do not put the clamp on top of that rubber boot that surrounds the metal piston. You rip that, you're doing more work. Probably need to take it into the shop afterwards too.
Now that the piston's compressed, I'm going to go ahead and remove the C-clamp and then very quickly remount the caliper onto the rest of the brake assembly before the piston has time to come back out.
All right, so now we have the caliper back on the rest of the brake assembly. I'm going to go ahead and tighten these 14mm bolts hand tight. And then we're going to go ahead and torque that down. These take 25 foot torque pounds. Be very careful here that you don't over torque these. They don't need as much as the 17mm bolts because these are really only holding the caliper on. All the brake force is actually being taken up by the shoe, which is why these needed to be torqued down so much more than these. All right, so get out your torque wrench, 25 foot-pounds, torque them down. All right, so here we go. That's 25. Oops. Oh. In this case, it keeps spinning like this because there's an additional bolt on the inside there. It was friction stuck on the top, so I didn't need to grab another wrench. But at this point, you can see it's just turning. So I'm going to go grab a crescent wrench real quick and put that in there so that it stops turning. All right, so I've put the crescent wrench in there, but I'm going to need two hands. The torque wrench goes on the outside here. The crescent wrench, where my thumb is holding the inner nut from moving. And again, just torque it down 25 foot-pounds of torque, and it'll be ready to go. All right, and there we have it. So we got the rotor, brand new. We got the caliper, brake pads. You can see how thick that is. All right. The only thing left to do here is to go ahead and put the tire back on. So I'm going to release this lug nut. All right. All right. Put the tire back on, the lug nut's back on, and now we're going to lower the jacks and torque the lug nuts down while it's on the ground, and then we're done. We're going to go ahead and do that to the same side on the other side, or the same thing on the other side. When you're finally done on both sides, you need to start the car, or the van, pump the brakes quite a few times, and then slowly roll it down the road or down your driveway or whatever, and then you should get good braking action. If the brakes seem squishy or whatnot, not stopping you at all, make sure you go slow. Go ahead and park it, jack it back up, go through the same procedure, make sure everything is tight and nothing is leaking, and then go ahead and try it again. If that doesn't work, then I think you're going to find that you need to take it into somebody to get it looked at. Anyway, but that was a brake change, both the rotors and the brake pads on a 2008 Toyota Sienna. Hope you enjoyed this video. This took about 24 minutes, looks like. So within an hour, you can definitely get both of these done. If you have any questions, shoot me some comments below, and I'll try to answer them best I can. All right. Thanks. Bye.